Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Coming Home to Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa, and here we'll dive into everything healing, mindset, confidence, manifestation, and how to become your most empowered self, aka coming home to yourself. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the depths of duality, what it actually is, and how it rules basically in every area of our lives. And I honestly think this is going to be such a big conversation, which is why we're going to dive right in. So, overall, duality governs the way we experience life. It is the lens through which we interpret reality, which is rooted in the contrast of opposites. So you have light and dark, love and fear, abundance and lack, masculine and feminine, just like you have the sun and the moon, ebb and flow, yin and yang, good and bad, and so on. We all know it, right? And this dynamic interplay shapes not only our external world, but also our inner journey of growth, healing, and self realization. So, duality basically provides us with the framework to navigate our existence. And yet, it also limits us by perpetuating the illusion of separation. And by understanding duality deeply, we can embrace its lessons, transcend its limitations, and reconnect with the unity that underlies all things. So, this is again just one of many secrets on how to become the most empowered version of yourself. And it really is through this energy manipulation, this deep energy work to navigate through any challenges that life throws at you, whether they're highs or whether they're lows. Now, let's begin with the foundation of duality. Duality begins with the perception of separation, as I've already said. From the moment we are born, we learn to distinguish between the self and others, good and bad, right and wrong. And this ability to differentiate is necessary for our survival and understanding, but it also introduces the illusion of division. At its most basic level, duality allows us to make sense of our experiences as it tells us exactly what it is to be labeled as. You see, without contrast, we could not comprehend joy without sorrow, nor recognize growth without struggle, for example, right? And if you're in any of my classes already, you know that I always explain it and show it as the metaphor of a roller coaster. And that's how life basically is represented, with its ups and with its downs, right? And why is it so simple that this contrast, this duality exists in our life? Well, pretty simple. Otherwise, it would be just one straight line, right? There would not be any highs because there aren't any lows and vice versa. It would just be a straight line, just like a literal constant like this, right? And I know for those who are listening and not watching right now, you might not see my hand gestures, but I'm sure even without the visual, you get the gist of it, okay? So without duality, life would be boring, plain and simple. You wouldn't feel any high or low emotions. They would just be neutral, right? There would just be stillness, basically. Duality literally allows us to experience life and ourselves at its fullest. However, the challenge with duality is that we often mistake the opposites for separate and independent forces. So we believe that we have to choose one over the other, that we can only exist in light by rejecting darkness or find success by avoiding failure, right? And this mindset is exactly what traps us in a cycle of constant resistance, where we push away the very experiences that are actually essential for our growth. And again, I always give you the personal development terms. So you're literally running away from yourself, from your shadows, from your truth, from your purpose, from growth, right? From the uncomfortable. But true freedom lies not in erasing duality, but in understanding that these opposites are the two sides of the same coin, and each giving meaning to the other. Okay. And when you're getting started on your healing journey or have already been on it, this is a crucial aspect that you need to embrace in order to get to your next level. right? Because at the end of the day, if you do not accept duality, you are not only not accepting duality, you are unaccepting of life experiences, life itself, and yourself above all. Now, next, I want to mention duality in the three planes of existence in which we live in and which we have to conquer in order to become the best version we can be and become a magnet to everything and anything. And the first one being is the physical plane, which is the world of form and sensory perception. On the physical plane, duality is the most apparent. This is, as I've said, the realm of form, so where we experience life through our senses. And here, duality manifests as tangible contrasts, like day and night, health and illness, wealth and poverty, and so on. The physical plane is often referred to as the plane of the ego, because our ego thrives on categorization and separation, of course. And this is also why you're easily getting stuck on only the physical plane, because your ego is limiting you to exactly just that, right? So you're not even aware that you haven't tapped into any of the other planes and keep playing small, because your ego is so smart in keeping you small and keeping you in your comfort zone. But again, the ego's role is not inherently negative, as I've already mentioned in one of my previous episodes. It actually helps us navigate the material world and fulfill our basic needs also. As I mentioned in my first episode, the ego is there for our protection, for our survival, our life overall, right? Yet the ego is also the source of much of our suffering. It thrives on comparison, for example, creating a narrative of me versus you, success versus failure, good versus bad, right? These divisions fuel anxiety, jealousy, and a constant striving for more, but in a negative way. So, leaving us feeling disconnected and unfulfilled constantly. So, we need to make our ego our best friend in order to overcome that. On the other side, the physical plane also offers profound opportunities for growth. So every contrast we encounter on this plane invites us to deepen our understanding of ourselves. Challenges like illness, financial hardship, or relationship struggles force us to confront our limitations and develop resilience, right? When we hit rock bottom, that is when we're most forced to change, to grow, to do better, to choose different. And when we stop resisting the opposites on this plane and instead embrace them as opportunities for learning, we begin then to transcend the ego's grip and move toward greater harmony with ourselves and with the universe and the world around us. So it is on us to master our ego and take back control of it. Regain back control over these contrasts through deep inner work so that none of these phase us anymore. And what you don't realize is that by mastering the ego and making it your best friend, you are transforming your weaknesses into your biggest assets. Because the ego should not be your biggest enemy, it should be your best friend, right? Your ego and all its shadows and weaknesses and things that you deem as unacceptable, they can be your biggest assets, actually, if you would just embrace and integrate them, right? Then the next would be the mental plane, which is kind of the realm of thought and potential. So beyond the physical lies the mental plane, where duality operates as opposing thoughts and beliefs. This is the realm of ideas, imagination, and the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are, about what we deserve, and so on. And on this plane, duality takes the form of limiting beliefs versus empowering ones, fear versus faith, and scarcity versus abundance, right? It basically plays with our head. So the mental plane is powerful because it is actually the bridge between the physical and the spiritual one. What we focus on mentally has a direct impact on our physical reality. Thoughts carry energy. And when repeated often enough, they shape our emotions, our decisions, and our outcomes, right? Let me repeat that. Everything is energy, right? You should know that by now. And for example, a belief in scarcity, like there is never enough, can lead to financial struggles, while a mindset of abundance, for example, I always have more than enough, attracts opportunities and resources. It's energetic, right? It's how you talk to yourself, it's how you wire yourself, which changes your circumstances around you, right? Because you not only energetically align with it, but you deeply believe in it as well, which in turn makes it easy to embody it. Okay? Yet, the duality on the mental plane can also create inner conflict. So, we may find ourselves torn between desires, doubting our worthiness, or oscillating between optimism and despair, for example. And the key to mastering this plane is through awareness, self awareness mostly. When we become conscious of our thought patterns and recognize the stories we tell ourselves, and therefore the actions that we take, we also gain the power to rewrite them, to rewire ourselves, right? To choose better and change for the better. By aligning our mental focus with our highest intentions, we begin to bridge the gap between what we experience and what we desire. Now, the last one is then the spiritual plane, which is the space of unity and non duality. So, the spiritual plane transcends duality altogether. And this is the realm of interconnectedness, where all opposites dissolve into unity. And on this plane, the illusion of separation completely falls away, revealing the oneness that underlies all existence, right? Again, everything is energy. We are all one initially. Remember the phenomenon of entanglement. Now, this is the space where we connect with our true essence, our so called higher self, right? Our God self, which exists beyond the physical and the mental realms. So, both planes. And spiritual traditions often describe this state as non duality. So, the understanding that light and dark, good and evil, and all other opposites are merely expressions of the same divine source. In this space, duality is not rejected, but integrated as one. Both the shadow and the light are honored as essential aspects of wholeness. Remember here what we talked about in the Coming Home to Yourself episode again. This is the space of ultimate limitlessness, where anything is possible. There is no contrast, there simply is. You simply are. Okay? Reaching this level of awareness requires practices that quiet the ego and the mind, such as meditation, mindfulness, and surrender. Of course, in relation to doing the inner work, becoming a better person every day, a better version of ourselves every day, finding home to yourselves every day. And when we connect with the spiritual plane, we begin to experience life from a place of peace and acceptance. We no longer see ourselves as these victims of our circumstances, but more so as these conscious creators of our reality, right? We are capable of navigating duality with grace. So, all of this you need to do in relation to the inner work, right? You cannot do it without it. And this is also the perfect time to move over to the aspect of duality in inner work and healing, and you seeing what an important role embodiment plays again when it comes to healing in relation to duality. So, the first thing I want to talk about is embracing the shadow. So, one of the most transformative aspects of duality is the interplay between light and shadow. So the shadow represents the parts of ourselves we've suppressed or rejected. So our fears, insecurities, unprocessed pain, and so on. These aspects often arise from childhood wounds or social conditionings or our parents and so on and so forth, which leave us feeling fragmented and incomplete. Now, shadow work is the process of turning toward these hidden parts of ourselves with compassion and curiosity. It is not about eradicating the shadow, but integrating it. All right, like I said before, you can make your biggest weakness and your biggest shadow your biggest asset, okay, your biggest strength by simply embracing it with compassion and integrating it. By acknowledging your pain, anger, and shame, all of these feelings, you reclaim the energy you've been suppressing them. Okay? And this integration brings you closer to wholeness, allowing you to transcend the illusion of duality within yourself. And as I've said, by integrating your shadows, you could make them your biggest assets. That's the one lesson you need to learn here. Now, when it comes to shadows, I've had to deal with many different ones over the years, obviously, from many insecurities to unprocessed pain, but one that has really catapulted me forward and keeps on letting me quantum leap anytime I want is overcoming the fears that I've had. And one big fear of mine was the fear of uncertainty, the one of not knowing, the fear of being blind to my circumstances. And the more I dove into my inner work, the more I built my self trust and my self belief, the more I became self secure in order to trust into the universe as well as in God, right? So now I am so solid even in the most uncertain situations. And this was actually the case the past weeks where I have been confronted with several situations that could have knocked me down and just left me broken and crying and all of those things that could have thrown me off the wagon on where I could have walked backwards in my personal development journey, right? And this is also the reason of how this episode came to be, because I thought how interesting how life plays and how my work, the work that I embody, literally lets me play the game with life, right? So I'm not a pawn on the board, I'm a player myself and I choose my moves, okay? I am the puppet master myself. Now, as I've said, the past 3 weeks have been very turbulent, to say the least. There were a lot of ups and downs, quite a few challenges that life threw at me. I was so close to being broke again. I was jobless. My car broke down, literally went to shit from basically one day to another. Onto that, I risked not having a car to get to my job, which started 2 days later. I've had multiple life and death scares in my family. My partner came to be in a very difficult situation concerning his job, which affected us and our long distance relationship deeply. But through all that, I not once flinched. I not once thought about suppressing what I was feeling. I not once thought of running away from what was happening. I not once put myself into a victim mindset and thought, oh, poor me, or why is this happening to me, blah, 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 blah. I not once doubted myself and my circumstances. I not once complained about any of it either. I knew often life becomes really shit before it gets really good. So I just trusted and sat back. I kept doing me. Again, keep the roller coaster in your mind, right? And as I've mentioned in the episode where I talked about my story, as bad as some phases and challenges are, duality often throws in very good things at the same time at you as well. Okay, so while all of this was happening, while I remained solid and knew it was all always somehow going to work out in my favor, even if I could not see it in that moment, even if it seemed unrealistic or impossible in that moment, life threw very great things at me as well. I found a well-paying job shortly before I really needed it, which fits perfectly into my life right now as I built my whole coaching business, right? And after telling me there was absolutely no replacement cars available in the whole country, and my insurance not willing to give me a car until the repairs on it would start, which in that moment was very uncertain because They still didn't know what was wrong with the car, and it could have been days or weeks, right? I said it was fine and it will work out somehow. I didn't think of it anymore. And literally, I kid you not, 2 hours later, my dad got a call that a brand new car was just delivered and I could come and pick it up the same day and use it for the whole week to get to work. My family scares resolved itself as well. Everything worked out fine and for the best for the moment. The situation with my boyfriend and I had the best outcome it could have possibly had in that moment as well. And it all worked out in his favor, even if the odds were very much against him for months on end. And even if either one of these circumstances would have not turned out for the best, it would have still been okay. And that is the point. That is the point. But through the trust, the embodiment, and the surrender, and just keeping on going, keeping on moving, you automatically align and invite blessings to flow into your life naturally and balance the negativity out quicker, right? So, through all that, I remained very solid mentally, physically, emotionally, just kept on doing my thing, and everything, literally every area worked out for the best. So now it starts becoming really good again. And again, there's always going to be duality. It's not always perfect, but just this is just a reminder that even if it's so shit and everything goes wrong and you think it could not get any worse, sometimes it can get worse. Just trust that it's going to be better. Just trust. All right. Then another aspect of duality is the balance of masculine and feminine energies. And these archetypes, which are forces, they exist within all of us, regardless of your gender, male or female. The masculine represents action, logic, structure, leadership, while the feminine embodies intuition, creativity, flow, and surrender, just to mention a few basic traits. And in many cultures, there has been an overemphasis on masculine traits, leading to burnout, disconnection, and imbalance. And to heal, you have to honor and harmonize both energies within yourself. For example, this means that embracing the structured discipline of the masculine while allowing space for the nurturing intuition of the feminine, right? The nurturing creative side of the feminine. But of course, this goes much deeper as well as into different aspects of embodiment and different traits that are necessary to be displayed. And when these energies work in harmony, we unlock a deeper sense of alignment and empowerment. And again, regardless of what gender you are, man or woman, you have them within you. And I stand by saying the perfect balance for women is 60 to 70% feminine energy and the rest masculine energy. And for men, 60 to 70% masculine energy and the rest feminine energy. All right. This could be a conversation for another day. So let me know down below or shoot me a DM if you want to know more about that topic. Next, we have duality playing a central role in our relationships as well. At first glance, relationships may seem like a dynamic of opposites. So you have the giver and the receiver, the runner and the chaser, the pursuer and the pursued, independent and dependent. And these contrasts often lead to conflict since it's just us projecting our unhealed wounds and unmet needs onto others, right? These are not healthy dynamics. However, relationships are powerful mirrors to us. They reflect the parts of ourselves that need healing and growth. The partner who triggers us is often showing us our shadow, while the one who uplifts us is reflecting our light, right? They're not being assholes, they're simply showing you what is already within you, good and bad. And when we approach relationships with this understanding, we move beyond blame and into a space of mutual growth, a space of mutual learning each other and ourselves. And the ultimate goal is to transcend the illusion of separation and see relationships as a dance of unity. So instead of focusing on differences, we learn to honor the core in each other. And this shift transforms conflict into collaboration and deepens our capacity for love, right? This is, for example, how my partner and I have been navigating our relationship from the beginning on, which has spared us a lot of fights and toxic conflicts and left us more so with simply productive conversations, tough but conscious discussions, and quick conflict resolution, right? Because we're solution oriented, not problem oriented. And this is because our perspective is not that it's him against me, but instead it is us against the problem at hand, right? Always. This is the reason why I believe we have had only, I think, 2 actual fights throughout the course of our now over 2-year relationship. Of course, on another note, to me, serious discussions and uncomfortable conversations are not labeled as fights, simply because they are not, right? I don't count them as fights. They aren't. Because we have rules like there is no yelling, there is no insulting, there is no name calling, there's no running away from each other and from the conversation, there's no disrespect of any kind, there's no neglect, which all keep us in check and let us create this beautiful harmony, letting duality still exist, but not in control of us or our relationship. So that doesn't mean that our relationship is not sometimes uncomfortable, or that we have uncomfortable conversations, or that bad feelings are coming up, or that worries are coming up. It's just the way we handle them, the way we see them, right? It's us versus the problem, not us one against one another, right? And the same should count for any other type of relationship, the one with yourself, your friendships, your family dynamics, to God, and so on, right? And this is what makes it very easy not to fight, not to lose control over the situation, but simply navigate through it consciously. Now, again, to live beyond duality does not mean rejecting opposites, but embracing them as part of a greater whole. So it is about finding the still point within the dance of light and shadow, masculine and feminine, love and fear, and so on. You all know them by now. And this requires stepping into the role of the observer. So, the awareness that holds space for all experiences without judgment and then acts according to your highest values. And when we transcend duality, we tap into a state of flow and authenticity, right? We no longer need to label experiences as good or bad, but simply accept them as they are. And from this space, we navigate life with a sense of peace and empowerment, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity for our growth and every joy is a reflection of our essence. So ultimately, duality is a gift. It is basically the canvas upon which we paint the story of our lives, if you want to see it that way. And by embracing its lessons and reconnecting with the unity that lies beyond it, you come home to yourself, whole, complete, and infinite. All right? With that being said, this is the end of our episode. I'm your host, Vanessa. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Coming Home to Yourself podcast. Bye.